My name is Josh Kopel, and I'm so pleased to introduce restaurateur and hospitality pioneer, Michel Falcon. He's one of the most inspiring leaders in our industry today. And the reason I think he's so inspiring is because he's built a company we'd all be happy to work for, and he's built restaurants that are a pleasure to work in. Michel is the king of culture, and today we're going to unpack not only how to build a world-class company culture, but also how to weaponize that culture into a profitable business. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Josh Kopel. I'm a Michelin-rated restaurateur, and I spent the last 2 years talking about running restaurants instead of actually running them. And I've done this with a singular goal in mind, to figure out the recipe for guaranteed success in our industry. I also host Full Comp, a podcast that airs twice weekly, unpacking the tools, tactics, and strategies of our industry's greatest leaders. It's a selfish endeavor. I have the privilege of talking to the folks I idolize, and I only ask the questions I want to ask. But this town hall, it's your turn. Today, Michel will answer the questions you've asked, and I encourage you to use the chat and Q&A function to ask questions throughout our conversation if there's anything you want to dig deeper on. We're also leaving time at the end for live Q&A. And with all that being said, welcome, Michel. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here.
Josh, thank you for the introduction, for the welcome, and for everybody listening. I'm flattered you even care to listen to one thing that I have to say, so I appreciate you as well.
I'm going to start out with my motivations here. One of the things that Michel and I were talking about before we actually went live was the importance of leadership. And the joke that I said privately was that, leadership is very low on our list of priorities, right? It's like making a lot of money is number one, then getting out of day-to-day operations is number two. Number three is probably buying a boat. And then number four is becoming a great leader, because it seems like an indulgence. But I would argue that becoming a great leader gives you the ability to run a great company. And what we're going to try to do today is create a through line through which you can see that great leadership creates a great company, which creates massive profitability. And with that being said, we'll get to the first question, which was Brasa's fast casual concept born of COVID, or had you already planned to branch out into a new tier of dining?
I was at full service restaurants, famously opening up some places with my business partners from starting in 2016. I saw food changing a little bit in 2018 in that it was becoming more transactional in nature. Restaurants are square footage of fast casual restaurants were getting smaller. So I started exploring what could be. And in 2019, I developed this idea that eventually became Brasa Peruvian Kitchen. Of course, I did not know a pandemic was barreling down on us. So I had to pause the endeavor for a moment, but it being fast casual, and kind of digital first with pickup and delivery, we've done quite well, where we've been profitable all throughout the pandemic and growing. We will have opened 5, maybe 6 locations within the first year and a half and these are corporate stores. So it was developed and conceptualized before the pandemic, accelerated during the pandemic. But in March 2020, when things came to a halt, it gave me some time to get really intimate on the values, the purpose of the company, and hit a pause. And now we're deploying and we're executing.
Now, I guess when we look at concept to execution, did anything change between, conceptualizing this thing in 2020, let's say 3 months before you opened, and then 3 months after you opened?
Surprisingly not. I'm very strategic with my approach, and I saw that, okay, this pandemic is I was educated by experts in the field of kind of medicine and everything about how long is this going to be approximately, and I based my plans off of this. But no, nothing, I would love to give you a very elaborate answer here, but no, nothing has really changed. Our square footage was always going to be tight. We operate between 700 and 1,000 square feet is our sweet spot, and they're able to produce, our target goal is 1.2 million per unit. 1.2 to 1.5, but no, nothing's really changed. We've been able to execute on our plan.
You guys are hitting those targets?
We're trending. We're not even a year in yet, but our run rate is on track to hit that.
That's amazing, man.
It's been hard, right? Like we've been, every if we could all empathize for a moment, we've been stepped on, and sometimes I feel like people are taking a soccer kick to my body, right? So and just we're I love this industry, like the resilience. Not to sound too cliche or throw some platitudes at you, but like just the resilience that we all have. It's awesome to see.
Did you see opportunities going into the pandemic? I mean, you literally opened in the middle of the pandemic. And
Yeah.
so did you see that as a strategic opportunity in any way?
For storytelling, a bit on the marketing brand side, it's like this brand that came from the pandemic, very similar to Airbnb coming out of the 2008 recession.
Sure.
When it comes to individuals trying new cuisine by ordering digitally on Uber, right? That gives you, kind of, I call it finger traffic, not foot traffic, finger traffic, right? So a
Right.
lot of visibility and control on the apps, if you're marketing properly. I did find it advantageous, right? I saw the empathy that consumers had with restaurateurs and wanting to support and try something new. Our slogan is eat new, explore more. And customers really took us up on that offer.
Did you also use it as an opportunity? I promise it's the last question I'll ask you related to this. But I'm also curious to know, did you use this as an opportunity to launch with higher pricing than maybe you had initially intended?
Good question. And no, surprisingly not. I had a blank canvas. So I'm very aware that I was in an advantageous position during the pandemic. I could have, exploited that a little bit, but I was thinking about what happens after the pandemic. What we did is, because we had this blank canvas, we started with, what do we want to pay our team members? Then we thought of food cost, then competition, then price elasticity, and then that ended up with our pricing. It actually, the nucleus of all of it was, what did we want to pay our team members? We have competitors in Ontario, Toronto, Ontario, where I am. Minimum wage is $15 Canadian. Our starting income is $18 per hour. So we're well above that. And we have team members that started, right? We have team members that are earning 20. And it's obviously a good recruiting tool, and we're still profitable. And notice the language that I use. I've banned the word minimum wage for our company because it's a really negative word, I find, and language in your company culture matters. So we spin it and we call it starting income. It's a bit more uplifting. It's a beginning, right? And we've generated some goodwill here because of it.
Right. Let's talk about your leadership team. How do you find GMs you trust so that you can grow without having to be at the restaurant daily?
So, really good question. It's something I'm enjoying right now. I'm not in the restaurants daily anymore. We opened July 28th, 2021, which happens to be Peruvian Independence Day. So we did that kind of accidentally, but it worked out nice. My rule of thumb is I'm going to be in every store that we open for 2 weeks straight, 16-hour days. But that is kind of my earmarked time, where after 2 weeks, I got to be able to pull myself back. General managers. I've learned general managers are more important than anyone in the business. More important than the front lines, because they're managed by the GM, more important than me. And I'm not saying this to warm up to this audience. I am not as important as our general manager. I have my position, and I need to make some smart decisions every month. But what I do is similar to what I guarantee attendees have done before. You've created a vision for your company, right? Mission, vision, values, and so forth. What about creating a vision for your target ideal team member or general manager in this case? So I learned this in 2013. I read a Lululemon article, and it talked about the customer muse. And they were saying, okay, Ocean is our fictitious male customer, or sorry, female customer, and Duke is the muse for the targeted male customer. Duke earns this amount of money. He vacations in these places. This is how often he exercises. And it was just this really intimate description of who the target customer was. I read that article way back when and thought, could we do this for team members? Because how are you supposed to recruit and hire somebody successfully if you don't even know who you're recruiting or hiring? Josh, you and I'm about to get married. Josh, you're married. I would imagine that before you married your partner, that you had an idea of who you're looking for. Maybe you like being outdoors, so this individual would, you'd want them to be able to join with you, want them to be adventurous, sense of humor, whatever. You have a little criteria in your head. And everybody does. But what if we took that
I just wanted to be told what to do.
Oh, fair. That too, what if we got really intimate with understanding who are we targeting for our GM? So for us, we have this employee muse document. It's 5 traits that we look for in our GM. So one of which is sunny disposition. Do they light up a room every day? Yeah, there's some days where you're going to be, not yourself and so forth, so your excuse, but a sunny disposition. Mine matters the most because the Peruvian culture is beautiful. It's lively, it's hospitable. How can we be a Peruvian a brand that represents Peru without people with sunny dispositions? So that's one thing. The next thing is somebody that can move fast and learn fast. Third thing, somebody who has a plan for themselves. Right? An individual that, whether it's with our company or another company, or they want to aspire to do something else after 3 years, but somebody that just has a plan for themselves. So that is how you find your GM. Is you have to first start painting a picture of what this individual, how they behave, what type of characteristics do they have. Now you know what the target is, go find them.
That's amazing. And then in terms of inspiring that person and giving them the tools that they need to succeed, I'm curious, like what does the right compensation look like for the type of person that you're talking about? And you don't have to get specifically into numbers, but what does that incentivization structure look like? And then secondarily, what tools do you have to supply them with in order for them to do a great job?
Yeah, so our compensation is always a percentage of what we believe the store is going to do, right? When we're doing our forecasting and our budgeting, we need to know, okay, what is affordable? Of course, what does the market look like? What's it paying, and so forth. Compensation matters, right? Like anybody that says, "Oh no, I'm going to pay them, what the market pays, but I'm going to give them this and that and whatever perks." At the end of the day, they can't go get a loan with perks, right? They need to take care of themselves first. And one of the things I've been exploring is this idea of talent density. And I learned this from Netflix. And essentially it's, if you are confident that this general manager could actually be 1.5 people, maybe even 2 people, well, you don't have to pay them twice the amount of what you would for 2 people, but think of going 20% above that. Right? It's a risk. I get it. It's an absolute risk. And it is very progressive way of thinking of compensation. But look, was there a labor crisis during the pandemic, or was there hey, I'm tired of working so hard for so little? Like I'm not going to answer that for everybody. Like we will all have our own opinions. I have mine. But if you can go to, continue with your day and think about that and be like, you know what, would I work that hard for that wage? It's humbling. But along with that, as a leader of my company, I've met individuals like you, Josh. I've met many people all over the world who have an expertise, a crypto person, a person in strength and development, a memory coach, just all these people. So I have to unlock my network for our team members, right? So if a team member comes to me and says, I'm really interested in learning about crypto, well, let me introduce you to my friend Mike Reed. Have a 30-minute conversation, right? There's no compensation because my friend wants to do me and my business a favor, but what type of learning and development can you give them outside of the job? I don't think you would be surprised how much that matters. It really resonates them because you've gone from an employer to an educator.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. I think that the linchpin of a successful leadership dynamic is the fact that you understand that everyone on your team has dreams that exist outside of the 4 walls of your restaurant. And
Absolutely.
and they'll help you achieve your dreams if you're helping them get closer to theirs. It's
Yeah.
about mutual investment.
I wanted to add something on the compensation part. I don't believe in bonus structures. We don't have bonus structures. This is new to me, by the way,
Okay.
and I'm exploring it. And look, a year from now, I may come back on here and say, "Oh, by the way, that didn't work," right? But for now, it's working. And what I mean by that is, I'm going to hire people and trust them that these are the stretch goals. So we have target goals for budget, and then we have stretch goals, right? We're always going for the stretch goal, but we budget on the target. But I will go to our GMs and say, look, for sake of argument, just using round numbers, I'm going to pay you $100,000. I'm not going to pay you $80,000 with a percentage, with an ability to get a bonus. I'm going to give that to you right off the bat. But guess what? In different words, if you don't hit it, you're gone. Right?
Yeah,
Like, massage the language a little bit, but
sure.
it's better for them too. Going to the bank. The bank doesn't care about your potential commissions or tips, right? Not in Canada at least. Whereas if they can show a solid salary, well, there's that commitment, right? The team member will have that commitment because you're helping them secure their livelihood. So I'm exploring it, and so far we're 7 months into it, and nobody's objected to not being in a tip-driven culture or a bonus-driven culture.
Look, multiple times throughout my career, I have hired people that I could not afford. And I hired those people, went into the employee restroom, closed and locked the door, stared in the mirror, and told myself repeatedly, great people make you money, they don't cost you money, until I believed it. And then I would walk back out confidently again. It is
Yeah.
absolutely the case. A great manager won't cost you a penny. All they'll do is make you money.
Mhm.
So the next question we have is, what are the essential elements of a thriving and sustainable company culture? People talk about it in the abstract, but if you were to build it brick by brick, what does it look like?
Well, first off, it's like a child. It needs attention every day. I wrote in my book, your culture is going to burp. It's going to shit on itself. It's going to need attention. It's going to be cranky. It's going to, and pardon my language, but it needs attention just like a child does. And it's always evolving. You can't just say, hey, here's some core values for the wall. I'm done, right? Culture, grow, right? It needs to be nurtured. It needs constant attention. And I have my role in that. Our mission for the company is to build a company that the world needs more of, one where everyday people are empowered to make great money, achieve career happiness, and help close the inequality gap. And that's a verbatim word for word. Now, if I go to in my restaurants, I expect them to be able to recite that also. Is it cult-like? I don't think so, because I think it's pure. But we need to move in unison together. And then we always have to be looking under the hood and changing. We don't change our values, right? Because that's like the moral compass of our company,
Sure.
right? And I thought it took me into all of 2019, Josh. I'm not lying. It took me 1 year to develop our values for our company. I wrote
Absolutely.
pages and pages and pages, scrapped it, came back to it, added, removed, and so forth until I said, this is the brand that I want to live and breathe. But it's a constant evolution of it, and always making sure that you create the change for the culture before the culture changes you. And there's some things that you can do. For example, when you interview every team member, whether it's a bookkeeper I'm hiring or a team member, a team lead, or whoever, has to go through a culture interview. And during this culture interview, I'm asking 2 questions per core value that we have. So one of our core values is the sunny disposition, right? So I ask some questions to identify, like, does this person have the personality type that I'm looking for? Everybody shows up to an interview. Not everybody. Most people show up to the interview with, like, everybody's buttoned up and everybody's good. Everyone's acting, right? I'm trying to find out, is this who you're going to be 2 months from now, right? Are you going to actually fit in the culture, or have you just shown up for the party dressed nice? Right? The
Yeah.
party being the interview, right? So it's just like always audit, audit, audit. Inspect what you expect. If you expect this great culture when you're not in the room, when you're not at your stores, not at your restaurant, you got to inspect it, right? So you need to have audits, you need to have mystery shops and so forth, right? So there's so many tools. Now, I've been at this since 2007, right? Understanding culture and customer experience and all these great things. And I could tell you 37 things to do. Do one. Just this quarter, do one. If you're good at this, do two, maybe. Get, get some momentum, gain some confidence underneath yourself first. Don't try to do everything. Don't try to boil the ocean.
Well, something else that I want to talk about here, because I've experienced it myself firsthand, and I know you advocate for it. When you lead with your core values, when those become the rules that spoken and unspoken, your team abides by, it makes your job as a manager and certainly an owner operator a lot easier, does it not?
Absolutely, right? Like I there's going back to certain things that you can do. Like if you have morning huddles or team huddles every day, pick a core value every day and just hammer it home. And then for individuals like myself or anybody that interacts with the brand. So culture is an extension of your company everywhere. So it's not just how you treat your employees. It's how you treat your customers, of course, but it's also how do you treat your investors? How do you treat your suppliers? How do you treat the media? Right? You can't put lipstick on a pig. You're either authentic and you live and breathe it, and it's a part of your DNA, or it's a culture that's going to erode, and you'll be a case study, unfortunately. But it's, back to the leadership part. It sounds cliche, and we've all heard this, but it begins with the leadership team. My team is watching me and my actions, right? Maybe subconsciously, but they are.
I think you bring up a great point, which is, culture is definitely what you think and what you believe, but more than anything, it's what you do.
Mhm.
The next question that we got is different markets have different cultures. And they want to know, how would you create the same culture in different markets as you scale?
Yeah, so I can answer this in a couple ways, and I'm reminded of a conversation that I had with my cousin. I'm Canadian Peruvian, and my cousin, I have German Peruvian cousins, and they read my book, and they were like, in other words, they said that sounds nice, but that stuff wouldn't work in Germany. I was like, why? They're like, we're just more straightforward. We're more serious. These warm little moments of gratitude or moments of customer experience, it's not for us. I said, okay, but the definition, you're not going to object to having good customer service. Nobody's going to say, no, that's not for me. It's the approach, right? So you have to identify the customer type. So Josh, you seem like a really extroverted individual, perhaps somebody who might have a dialogue with me if I was delivering good customer service to you. Let's say you're wearing a Dodgers hat. You're based in Los Angeles, right? So Dodgers hat
Yeah.
fitting. Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
So you're wearing a Dodgers hat. And I strike up a conversation just because of the Dodger hat that you're wearing, right? You might buy into that conversation a little bit. I'm picking up, we got to train our team members to do this, right? So I'm seeing Josh, he's smiling. He looks like he's in a good mood. He's wearing a Dodgers hat. Yeah, that's my cue to engage. He seems like somebody that I would classify as the socializer customer personality type. Okay. But then, me, when I go to the bank, nobody should talk to me. Just get me the heck out of there. I don't want to be in the bank. I don't like being here. I probably don't have a smile on my face because I don't like the environment. Why isn't everything digital? Why aren't we leveraging blockchain? All these things are going through my head. So with that being said, the individual that's delivering me customer service, whether it's in a bank or in a restaurant, let's just leave him alone, right? His definition of customer service is an expedited customer experience. Let's just get his drink to his table within 30 seconds. Let's keep the dialogue to a minimum. He's not a bad guy. He's just not into the engagement, right? So it's not just culture by region, it's culture by individual and the definition of success that they have for themselves. So I call that the director style. That's me in the bank, for example. Or maybe me sitting at your bar and I'm trying to answer emails and I just want a cold IPA and just like, look, I'm not a bad guy. I just don't want the dialogue right now. And that's
so
us. If I could continue, sorry.
No, please.
That is 100% on everybody who's in a leadership position on this webinar, right? We have to give the tools to the team members. People don't fail, processes do. So if your team members aren't delivering this exceptional customer experience, well, have we even given them the education that they need to be successful, right?
Fair.
Perhaps in that, the evolution of training, right? We can't just set it and forget it, leave it for 2 years and not revisit it, right? That's like, asking a child to grow without proper education or, support, right? We have to take some of those things that we know that work well in our personal lives and bring that into our professional lives.
What's the secret sauce there? Is it role playing with your team? Because it is so circumstantial.
Yeah, look, like everybody needs a flex that muscle a little bit to make it grow, but it's ultimately how you interview, right? It's like, is this person engaged? Do they even want to be here? Or are they just here because, they want some beer money and rent's due every month,
Sure.
right? It's the person. That's why I said earlier, my employee muse has one trait amongst others that's like, this person has a plan for themselves. Maybe they joined my restaurant, they want to be our director of operations one day and earn 6 figures. Or maybe they just are with us because they are in veterinarian school and they're about to graduate and they need to pay their rent or whatever the case is. It really comes down to the ethics of the person that you hired. Do they care about their namesake? Do they have pride in everything that they do? But yes, but aside from that, yeah, of course, the role playing has to. Every time I train on the customer personality types with our team members, or I'm speaking at a workshop for a company or something, they're always like, "Oh yeah, that makes sense," right? Like, Josh, I'm not an academic. I can't do long division. I'm not good at that stuff. But I'm good at being able to take things and breaking it down on the
Sure.
humanity side of things, where people are like, got it, right? I can do that.
Makes sense. And now let's try and continue to thread that needle. So, you become a great leader, you now have a great company. How do you ensure that that is also a profitable company?
I want a boat, right? I want a boat like you. I want a boat. um, I I have investors, and I have a fiduciary responsibility to fight and protect their investment and grow it. How I go about that might be a little different, right? My book, the People First Culture book, Build a Lasting Company by Shifting your focus from profits to people. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't believe in profits. Of course I do, and I need to earn it. I know that because of companies like Starbucks or Warby Parker and retail eyewear and retail, both online and in real life, that culture can pay a dividend. Right? Sometimes we're not patient enough to see that dividend develop. Because if you think of a world of immediacy, digital marketing, let's say, we can invest in Google AdWords and start seeing reservations or conversions on our website instantaneously. But if I said, hey, Josh, if you want a better company culture, we need to redo the way that you onboard, you interview, and you train. Well, where's the ROI, Michelle? When's the ROI? Well, can't promise you an exact date, definitive date. It's not going to be 24 hours, that's for sure. Not for me. Just give me more customers, right? But I know that it cost my company $1,593 to recruit, interview, onboard, and train one team member. What is that going to mean if the whole team turns over every year? We're talking thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. So for anybody listening, you $1,593. That's my cost. Now, what is that inclusive of? And we can, think about this for yourselves, and I'll tell you how to get the final definitive answer. It costs somebody on my team 1 hour to post a job description. I round up. Okay, post a job description, get it ready to go, make some edits, hit publish. Okay, 1 hour to do that. 1 hour to receive and sift through emails at the minimum an hour, right? Then it takes another hour to host a group interview. Then we have to go through, put them on payroll, get them set up for benefits, go back and forth on email. Okay, more time there. 2 weeks of training. $25 for their uniform and their hat, $20 for their onboarding gift. That equates to $1,593. you can do this simple math as well too, anybody on this webinar. What I did also was I hired a friend who's a chartered accountant and really good with numbers. And he's a friend, so he did me a favor, but I helped him look at this from an analyst perspective, right? So I was like, let me bring somebody who's really good at numbers to make sure I'm looking at the right data, because now it makes a lot more sense. Like, I am going to spend a little bit more money on training because that number scares me. Nearly $1,600 per employee.
Sure.
So if you reduce the retention, increase the retention, you reduce the cost. So I'm just gonna, that's just one element of it. What about this, Josh? You come to the restaurant. I'm Michelle. I'm the tenured employee. I've been there for 3 years. You come 3 times a week. And because you trust me, Josh, I'm able to increase your average guest check because you buy a kombucha and you double up on the chicken. Right. So there's a profitability there. It's right in front of us, right? It is right in front of us. Like we have to shift from asking the question of, is there a correlation, to what is my correlation? What is my $1,593 cost per implement, right? So like, we gotta become more sophisticated on the number side, the analyst side of things, the analytics, side of things.
I couldn't agree with you more.
It makes it fun too. But like, I like this stuff. And if you want to outsource it to a friend, just like I did to my friend James, like, bring somebody on. I'm sure you know somebody, right? And pay them a little money to compensate for the time, and they're going to bring you tons of value.
I couldn't agree with you more. This next question like hit me square in the gut, just because like I was there long before the pandemic. It's because again, like when you do find yourself short staffed, which we all do from time to time, especially as of late, what do you do for managers that are managing scared because they're afraid to lose a staff member with everything that's going on in the world?
Yeah, that's a tough position to be in, and I would be remiss if I did not tell you that I've been in a position like this before earlier in my career. I think we all have. Mentors, like finding that you're removing that fear from the leader, and making sure that they have the education to know how to, one, either coach up or coach out. But then you always, like with our company, we're always hiring. We have a culture of meritocracy, and we have a lot to offer, Josh, because we're so focused on our culture. We pay more than the competition. Well, we're up there with some of the more elite brands in Toronto here that we compete with. Benefits, learning and development. We don't have a probationary period. I abolished that. Like, you're part of the team on day one and so forth. So with that, and my fiance says it's because I'm a Libra, where the scales is the symbol. Fair is fair, right? For me, it's like, I'm doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You have to bring your whole self to work, or I will replace you. I don't say these words, right? Because it's a bit demoralizing, but it's understood. We're always recruiting. So I always call, just like marketing, top of funnel marketing, right? Fill the top of the funnel. You have to do the same thing with recruiting. For me, I'm hosting interviews at least 3 times a week, group interviews with up to 5 people. So I'm at the minimum, meeting 15 people. Doesn't mean that I'm hiring everybody, of course. But if I'm blown away by somebody, and I'll go to my director of operations and say, you have to meet this individual, right? They blew me away. And if Guillermo says, we don't really need the headcount right now, I would say, find a place for them, right?
Yeah.
Or talk to your managers right now, who's thinking of getting rid of somebody. And I know it doesn't sound like a friendly culture to fire people, but we have a business, right, to do. And if there's team members who aren't going to show gratitude for all the things that we're going to do, then we're going to replace them with somebody who will have gratitude. And I'm not going to be apologetic about it, because we work really hard to build this culture. And if there's somebody, I had a team member tell my managers one day, my manager said, why isn't the sandwich board up? And the guy, he just got a raise too the week before. He said, oh, I was a little lazy that day.
Wow.
At first, I was like, I don't know if I should respect you for being that honest or be really upset. I was upset, not me. My manager's really upset. And I said, do what you got to do. I was lazy that day. Well, I'm going to be lazy to pay you when I have to run our payroll. Does that Makes sense, right? Again, I don't say these words because they sound condescending, but fair is fair. But we got to make sure that on the company side, we're holding our end of the bargain to be able to stand proudly behind what we're building.
I agree with you. And look, I would also say that it's very important to have non-negotiables, right? That
Love that you said that.
it's, for me, I was never one to motivate. I was never one to manage. I believe that, the best team members self-manage and self-motivate. And I think that when you find individuals that fit that profile, all of the conversations about showing up on time and in uniform and ready to work and great attitude, they all kind of fall by the wayside because you're actually hiring professionals that can excel in this role.
Absolutely. And to kind of extend just for a moment on this, I talked about Netflix and I talked about other industries that I'm looking at, hiring a friend who's an analyst and thinking of this industry a little different. One of the other things I'm doing, a good friend of mine named Joe Morello, he's the #2 of recruiting at Electronic Arts, multi-billion-dollar gaming company.
Sure.
And one of the things that we've been going back and forth on, he's been educating me, is just like recruiting like a technology company does. What does that look like? What type of learnings can we take from this multi-billion-dollar company? And I'm not anywhere close to that, but just because you're a small business doesn't mean you can't learn from some of the bigger companies in different industries. I would argue you could glean more value from other industries, put your little spin on it for your company, than you could, from the neighboring restaurant. I'm not suggesting that we can't learn from each other. Of course we can, but we need to make sure that we're looking outside of our industry as well.
I couldn't agree with you more. I would argue that groupthink and the fact that we have been such a cloister group has resulted in far too many issues along the way for all of us. The next question is, do you have best practices for instilling culture in the onboarding process?
Do I? This is gonna be on my tombstone. It's like it sounds a little dark, but it starts with the interview process. You have to connect the interview process with the onboarding process. And this is what I mean. Interviewing is sometimes very rudimentary. It's just kind of check in, check out, and I have some lessons around interviewing. But with the onboarding piece, and Josh, let's role play. You're interviewing at my restaurant, and I'm interviewing with you. I'm the interviewer. What is an indulgence that you can't live without that costs less than $20?
Oh, that's a good question. There's this Bodega Louie in downtown Los Angeles. They have these macaroons that are absolutely to die for. And they're not cheap. They're like $3 a piece. But
okay, cool. $20. So you're getting approximately 7. Okay,
yeah.
let's say 6. Is there a type of flavor you like, Josh, from this place?
Earl Grey.
Earl Grey. Okay, Earl Grey. And then the name of the place was?
Bodega Louie.
Phenomenal. Bodega Louie, Los Angeles, Earl Grey. Okay, on we go with the interview. That's one question of 12 that I'm asking. Okay. Josh, we get back to the next day. Hey, you're hired. Onboarding starts on March 1st. Cool. Josh shows up on time as we like. And the first thing he sees is a handwritten card from me, the owner of the company, saying, "And language matters here." It says, "Hi, Josh. Thank you very much for joining our culture. You're a very talented person, we can tell, which is why we hired you. And we know that you could have chosen somewhere else. Thank you for choosing us. Welcome to Brasa Peruvian Kitchen." Then beside that card is your Earl Grey macaroon from
Bodega Louie.
Bodega Louie in Los Angeles. Pardon me.
That's awesome. I'm totally stealing that. That's a great idea.
I literally, I'm not an exaggerator. I've literally had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of companies take this and use it and see benefit from it. Now, this is why I do it. Okay, hang with me. This isn't like, oh, the warm and fuzzies and so forth, and Josh got something sugary, right? Why did I do this? And pay attention to how I did it. Well, one, Josh, from this moment forward, I want you to take care of our customers and create an experience they've never seen before in restaurants. Well, shame on me if I don't show you what that looks like first, Josh. You've never been onboarded to a company like this before. Also, it's pretty cool when you're like, oh, that's why you asked me that question, right? You come back to it because you left the interview being like, why did they ask me that? That was weird. That was different. But here's another thing, customization, personalization. I didn't just get you any macaroons, Bodega Louie. What type of flavor? Earl Grey. So I personalize that. How many times do we say, create a customized personal experience? Personalize this.
Sure.
Well, we got to do it for them first. So now they know what they look like. Josh, I've literally seen team members like faces light up.
Sure.
And now here's the catch. It costs less than $20. Remember when I said it cost $1,593 to hire a new person? $20 was equated into that cost. But now you're about to go into training because this was day one when we did it. Your engagement is sky high. So when we teach you about our products and our menu, you're going to retain the knowledge better. And then you're going to deliver a better customer experience. Remember the profit part? You're going to start delivering an amazing experience much sooner than somebody who isn't trained as well. And remember, this started with $20 little gesture. I got a bunch of other things, but I'll keep it down with this. Remember, with the audience, if you're like, hey, I like that idea, and if you feel like you're drinking from a fire hose by watching this dialogue and listening to this dialogue, like that's phenomenal. But please don't do too much. Just start lean, gain some confidence, and maybe it's the $20 question you take home.
You know, man, I was in all tiers of dining, and I think one of the biggest hurdle is trying to create, and I just put this parallel together myself, and so I wanted to share it with the group. You know, how do you motivate people that work in a fast casual environment? Like in fine dining, it's very easy to motivate because like it's this elegant atmosphere and you're dealing with fancy people and fancy food and fancy things, and it's
Yeah.
very easy to roll people into that culture. But you know, when we opened a fast casual concept, it was very hard to get people excited about working a cash register. But the parallel that I just put together in my own mind listening to you talk and share that example with the macaroons is no one may ever be excited about working in a fast casual concept like Brasa, but they might be very excited to work for the company itself. And they
That's
would do
it.
a great job, right? Because it's about the company, not necessarily about what they do day to day.
So nobody aspires to cut onions for our salsa criolla, which is a Peruvian salsa. Nobody. It's, you know, if our punch dicer isn't working, it's literally painful, right? Our eyes. Oh, cutting onions. But they see that they're a part of something that can aid them in the future, in the
Sure.
short term. Maybe they get promoted, and we have case studies that we market about how people have been promoted and grown within the company. It's not the act that they're doing, but you do also have to really prop them up as celebrities in the company,
Sure.
right? The mission of the company, taking everyday people and making sure that they feel very valued. I've had it up to here with hearing people say low skilled labor, and there's another term that really upsets me. It might come to me in a moment, or you better work hard or you're going to end up working at McDonald's. What's wrong with working at McDonald's? I worked at McDonald's. There's some good people that work at McDonald's or other fast casual. That's offensive to me, right? These are people that are the fabric of society, and we have this, like, it upsets me, like visibly upsets me. So I defend them, and I will defend them against customers too. I don't believe the customer is always right. I don't. Some customers are jerks and they berate and belittle our team members, and I'll be very quick to fire a customer because it's much harder to find a loyal team member than it is to replace a customer. I'll tell you that. We all know that. But so going back to kind of your thought there is like, sure, is it work that somebody aspires to do for the rest of life? Probably not. But it doesn't mean that it can't be meaningful work.
I love that. Next question. Do you have any suggestions on raising capital for expansion since banks are less reluctant to loan to restaurants?
Banks won't let me.
I don't even have a checking account.
Jeez, like a car, like a credit card, really? Like you want it secured with $20,000? Give me a break. In Canada, I believe it's worse in Canada than it is in the US, so I've heard. But Yeah, no, banks are not your friends. And they're only your friend when you have little risk. But restaurants are risky. We know this. But which is probably why I like it, because I like it. I like that risk. But yes, I do have some advice on raising capital. And I've raised capital for Brasa. I've raised 2 rounds of capital. I'm in the middle of closing a $2 million round of financing. So I've learned this. It comes down to one thing: the person behind the brand. It's not the concept. We have commodity products, right? Tacos are tacos are tacos for the most part. I know people are going to argue with me, of course, right? But my bowl and a salad and from the next person, they're commodities, right? It's the person and it's the story, right? I'm very thankful when I look back on my career that I took public speaking seriously, because I can do the showmanship. I can get people excited about the brand and I can be the face of the brand. If you're an introverted person, that doesn't excuse you from being able to be this individual, right? But nobody's going to get excited and jump out of their seat unless you do first. And it ultimately comes down to the individual, not necessarily the brand or the product. Like, who are they investing in? And you likely have heard this before: you bet on the jockey, not the horse. And that's the biggest lesson that I've learned. Like, I met this guy by total fluke. Met this guy within 72 hours. He had written me a $650,000 check. I was like, and I almost said no to him coming to the meeting. It's a longer story, but I was thankful that I eventually said yes. But it's reputation, right? What's your reputation like with your employees? What's your reputation like in the community with your customers, right? That's if you can get that part. Money is fungible. You're gonna find it. You're
Sure.
gonna find it. But here's the biggest message. Interview people that you are trying to raise money from, just like you interview an employee. You do not want to be in bed with somebody on your cap table who you do not like. It will be a nightmare, an absolute nightmare. I'm thankful I learned this lesson, and I haven't had this issue, but I've seen many friends lose their business and be in bed with somebody they don't want to be in bed with.
For sure. Some money can be very, very expensive.
Oh yeah.
The only things I would add to this, I've raised about $3.5 million myself. The first is Carlos Santana said, "There's nothing in the world more contagious than enthusiasm. If you're
I
excited,
like that.
it's a lot easier to get people to invest in you."
Yeah.
And the other thing is this, and the first guy that ever financed me, he said, "Do you think the world needs another restaurant?" And I was like, "Absolutely not. But the world desperately needs another great company." And so if you can
That's
pull your right.
Oh, I gotta steal that one.
So right. So forget about tiers of dining, forget about industry. This world needs more great companies because people are desperate to work for great companies and people are desperate to support great companies. So if you're building a great company, the money's already there. We have about 11 minutes left. I'm going to tackle this Q&A. I see that the chat is overloaded. Also, please continue to ask questions in the Q&A, and I will begin to run through these as well. So the first question is, what metrics did you use to choose your restaurant locations?
Really good question.
Yeah.
One, I look at the first location. I was told, look at foot traffic, right? What's coming past you. But that wasn't always a good indication of success. Our first location is actually off a main street, but we've still been successful. So that wasn't that was the first thing I was advised on for fast casual, but it's not something I necessarily paid attention to. In regards to the other metrics, was thinking of what our capital cost was going to be, or our operating cost, pardon me. So obviously our rent, like I wanted our COGS, so our costs, no, sorry, not our COGS, our GROC, our gross rent and occupancy costs to be maximum 4%. So I had to look at square footage of what I could afford in particular neighborhoods and what that was going to be like against our targeted revenue. or budget
Sure.
revenue of 1.2 million. So I started there. There's multiple layers to it, but that's one thing that I often think restaurateurs miss is what's our targeted grok? Again, gross rent and occupancy costs. Not just that, but insurance as well, and some other things I will add to it. But just be careful with this prime location, because that prime location, man, I have a high grok, and if you don't hit your numbers, you're really that enthusiasm, like it's on the corner street of Melrose and whatever street, and
Sure.
careful. So I could elaborate more, but I'll just say the main metric was my grok. Is this achievable
Uh,
in
any
a good market?
any thought to supply and demand there? I mean, you serve such a niche cuisine.
Mhm.
Did you do any analysis of the neighborhood and the community to see if there was demand for it?
To be honest, no. Now keep in mind, my product isn't traditional Peruvian. I've taken a different approach to it. It's salads and bowls and avocado toast and smoothies with Peruvian flavors. So with Toronto being such a multicultural city, I knew that they were adventurous eaters. If I went to, Winnipeg, Manitoba in Canada, would this concept work? I don't think it would work as well as Toronto. I know it will work in LA, Miami, Boston, Chicago, because those markets have already been trained to be adventurous with their eating
Sure.
habits, right? And their South American eating habits and so forth. So to answer your question, Josh, no, I didn't. If I had gone the traditional route of Peruvian food, I would have. I just knew people like North Americans like salads and bowls and these things that we're serving.
What was your target check average, and are you hitting it?
We are exceeding it. Our target check average was 16. Remember, this is Canadian dollars, right? 16. We're at 1850.
That's incredible. And is there a reason for that? What didn't you predict? Is your team upselling? Is that what it is?
I'm telling you, we have our customers going down the line, eating out of the palms of our hands, figuratively speaking, of course, and no pun intended. But um, it is by the end of the experience when they come to the register, they should be in like this euphoric, majestic state, being like, where am I? Right. And we are able to upsell them on kombucha or double protein, right? So that's it. Like, look, one of our modules in training for our team members, I had a friend film a video like this who's in ballet and in theater, and then I had another friend who's a comedian teach our team members how to be better at showmanship and presentation and theater, because that's
Yeah.
they're on stage,
Oh, I
right?
agree with you.
And they see the value in it, right? And now they know how to sell better, more.
And then in terms of day parts, what's your busiest day part at Brasa?
What do you mean by day? Sorry, did you say day part?
Day part. I think the question is relating to, are you guys busier for lunch or dinner?
Oh, depends on the location. So in our office tower location in the financial district, daytime for sure. But then in our other two locations, nighttime. So this is interesting because the customer personality type changes from day to night. The office tower team customer is like, give it to me right away. I want out of here. But then in the evening, we have individuals that have a little bit more time. But it's a split, and it's interesting because it's not so cookie cutter, if you will.
So I have a question kind of related to all of the things that were asked in the Q&A, which is this question of wide versus deep. So
Mhm.
you're obviously an ambitious man. You've got a couple locations open, and I'm sure you're looking to expand massively.
Mhm.
But you look at your run rate and you see that 1.2 is easily achievable,
Mhm.
right? So do you pause on your expansion plans and say, can we get this thing up to 1.4, 1.6?
I went on a very long walk on Monday thinking about this exact thought. I projected 8 stores in Toronto before we open our ninth in Miami next year. Then I started thinking about, wait a second, why 8? We're blowing past these targets. Why not
Sure.
concentrate our efforts on 6? So I'm leaning in that direction because now the capital cost, the capex, I'm not having to put up, our stores cost us $350,000 to build, Canadian again. But this is inclusive of just not our equipment schedule and the construction, but it's also opening inventory, opening training labor, opening marketing. It's all inclusive. But so I looked at kind of our budget and our forecasting. I said, maybe we forego opening a couple more stores in Toronto because we do want to be a US based brand. And I just spend a little bit more money with our digital marketing company to increase our catering, higher margins, and increase the average unit volume. So it's funny, we didn't rehearse this question at
No, we
all, and
did.
it just came at me. Whoever asked this question is brilliant in my mind. But yeah, it is something that I'm considering right now.
I think it's just something that all restaurateurs should consider as we talk about growth, because you can grow your profits out of a singular location a lot easier than you can grow your brand across multiple locations. And
Mhm.
so, for me personally, hindsight being 2020, I would never open another location until I looked at the existing locations that I had and said, I have exhausted all growth capacity out of all of these places. Now it's time to move.
So with my, one of my business partners in my fast casual restaurant or my full service restaurants were like, you're nuts for doing this because we're going to open 5, maybe 6 in a year and a half before we've even seen a whole calendar year finish.
Mhm.
But I'm very confident in not just the brand, the concept, but I'm confident in my ability to build
Yeah,
teams that can execute on the plan. So, Josh, like, look, in 2 years, I may come back and be like, yo, I failed miserably.
I doubt it.
There's a chance, of course, right? But I'm confident because we have the plan, right? We have the strategic plan. Now that's kind of easy. It's the
Mhm.
executing part that's the harder part. But I know myself, and I'm sure there are people on this listening as well too that have that belief in themselves. Um, they're like, I'm going to do it, and I'm not going to stop. And remember too, I have a fiduciary responsibility to my investors, and I don't want to let them down.
So Michelle, I know that you wanted to give everyone an opportunity to get in touch with you after the webinar as well, and there's a website they can go to get more information. Do you want to
Yeah,
share that?
I my interview questions. I love I like making profit, and I love doing a bunch of things with this business. But what I love the most, and I'm very genuine with this about this, is when another restaurateur, regardless of where they are on this planet, emails me and says, "Hey, that thing you recommended is working for me." I love that. So I believe we're going to distribute a link after
We
this
are.
webcast. Yeah, and you can enter your email address and download the 12 interview questions our entire company, or myself and our managers asked to make sure we find people who are going to fit within our culture. So throw your email address in there and it's automatically sent to your inbox. Check your spam folder, of course, just in case it lands there. But try them out, and please, if it aids you, please let me know who you are. I love this industry so much, and we got to support each other. I know, again, it sounds cliche, but we really, really do. And if there's something that you think I can learn from you, please, I'm desperate for education wherever I can find it. And if you're ever in Toronto, let me feed you.
Ladies and gentlemen, the king of culture, Michel Falcon. Michelle, thank you so much for taking the time, buddy.
Thank you, everyone. I really appreciate you.